What's up, everybody? This is Connor and Joshua with Chamber One Tactical. Today we actually are going over the top two kind of main models of firearms that Kimber has right now as far as their handguns go. We've got the Kimber KDS9C, and then we have the Kimber R7 carbon fiber compact, which is a fairly new gun to the market. So we're going to be going over the differences, kind of going over the high-end versus the more budget, even though it's not really a budget price, but the more budget that Kimber offers. So we're going to get into the features on each gun and talk about which one, which way we would point you in the direction of at this point. So let's get into it. All right, so real quick, we do want to give, obviously you guys see an extra gun up here. The reason that we're doing a review on these two particular guns is because this is kind of what Kimber has become as a company now. So we brought out just our standard 1911 from Kimber. I think this is a Kimber custom. This is, an older 1911 that we've had for a long time. This is actually our father's, but this is kind of what, if you thought about Kimber, this is kind of what you look for. It's just a standard 1911 single stack. I think Kimber has done a good job for a long time making decent 1911s. And this is kind of what they stuck to for the longest time. Was it 1979 is when they started making guns, and you really have only seen in the past 1911 variants, and then a revolver every once in a while, but you really haven't seen too much straying away from the 1911 side of it. So this is kind of interesting. There's a lot more that people are asking for nowadays with all these different guns coming out. They're making them smaller and still shootable, and they're making them out of different materials. So it's kind of, this is what Kimber is putting out there to meet the needs of people that may have to go somewhere else if Kimber wasn't making these products. So we're going to run through, just because we have these two guns, we're going to compare them because there is a pretty big different price point. I know the Kimber KDS9C, this gun comes in, or when we purchased it, it was around $1,700, but I have recently seen them coming down. I believe I saw it the other day on Gun.Deals for like $1,255. That was the rail version, which is really low. That's typically what you were seeing the standard KDS9C selling for. So if that's something that's going to be happening more often, then I would definitely say this gun is a good gun to get if they're getting it at that price point. But like I said, we're going to compare the two, and then go ahead and say the price point of the
so the way that
compact.
this one's set up, not including the comp, that's the only thing that we did extra to it, but the way that this is set up, it came with the Holosun on there with a threaded barrel. It was around $1,100.
Yep.
And then just the base model, like if you take a couple of those options off, I think we've seen it at the MSRP as low as $750.
Yeah. So hopefully that price point comes down as well as the, how things go. They first come out to market, everybody goes and buys it and gets excited, and then you end up seeing price points come down for the most part. So hopefully that price comes down too, because there is a lot, a lot of other guns out there that are a good bit cheaper. But like I said, we're going to run through the information real quick. So starting on the KDS9C with the sights, these sights are going to be your all metal tritium filled night sights, which is a great carry option in my opinion. Easy to pick up during the day, but they do glow at night. And they're not too blocky where you can't see your target, which is a big thing to me. I don't like these ginormous sights on guns where you can't pick up your target. I understand they're good for close quarter, but I also me and Joshua also like shooting a little bit further, and when you got those big old honking sights on there, it's really hard to see your target. So I think they did a good job on this gun with the sight setup. It being the size to carry. Now the sights on the carbon fiber compact are a little different.
Yeah, and they're pretty much the same in the fact that they are the tritium filled, so they are night sights, but they did make one big upgrade that I actually prefer. And they made the front a different color. So the front is actually orange and the back are just white, whereas all three of those are white. So in daytime shooting, it makes it a lot easier to pick up that front sight. So I think that was an upgrade, and that's something that both me and Connor like to see, is that front sight stand out a little bit more.
Well, and I do like it too when you have an optic on the gun. You know, and you have two different color. You know, these kind of get drowned out when you have an optic. That you know, point being on there. Another big difference between the two, which I really wouldn't expect from a cheaper gun, is with the Kimber KDS9C. When you buy the optic plate from Kimber, if you buy the standard one, you lose the opportunity to co-witness. You no longer have a rear sight. They were able to do a completely different design on the carbon fiber compact, where the optic is directly mounted to the slide, and then you can actually co-witness with the standard iron sights, which is, you know, in my opinion, the perfect way to mount an optic. You know, if there was a perfect way to mount an optic, I really like the direct mount where your standard sights are your co-witness. A little disappointed on the KDS9C that you weren't able to do that. I do believe that Kimber has made options out there to get a rear sight on a plate, but it's going to be more expensive. So that's just, and I think you have to replace your front sight too. So it's a little difficult. So you got another $50 to $100 in a plate here, where this one's just direct mount. So I really like what they did on this one, or on the carbon fiber compact. Moving on to the actual slide and slide serrations, the Kimber KDS9C is a very good looking gun. It's got great serrations on the front of the gun. I actually think this is one of my favorite designs, just because it's sleek and it's not too crazy, and there's not a ton of different cuts on the slide that can get hung up on like a holster or something like that. But it's very easy to use, so your hand wraps over perfectly, and it's got texture touching everywhere on your hand, and it's just really easy to get a hold of. So the serrations, in my opinion, on this gun are some of the best, just because they're very usable, but they're not super flashy, and they're not going to get hung up, like I said, on material or on a holster if you're actually using the gun. What do you think about this one?
I'd say this one, they were a little bit they went on a different approach. This one's a lot more plain. The serrations are not as deep. There's not as much. It doesn't come all the way around. There's a lot of just flat level surfaces on this firearm. You know, and sometimes even companies will put, you know, those lines at the tops to help out with glare. Not this one. I mean, it's just,
which you know, KDS9C does have that.
Yeah. Whereas this one, I mean, it's almost, it's a little bit plain looking, you know, for Kimber at least, because they like to make good looking firearms. This one's just a little bit, you know,
well,
plain.
And I do think that the reason for that is for durability. So Kimber does close off that, you know, they do close off their port up here just to keep it, I think it's for strength of the actual slide. But you know, like, I do agree, it's a little more plain Jane than
and
Kimber usually
even
does.
racking it. I mean, you notice just compared to that one, when you come over the top, which, you know, I think most people, that's how they run it these days. You can just feel this one's just a little bit more slippery. You can still grab onto it. I'm not saying that it is slippery. But compared to that one's got a lot more texture. So that's just one thing to note. And then I guess, you know, moving on to the actual frame. Obviously, these are going to be different because this is a polymer frame, carbon fiber. You know,
carbon fiber infused polymer.
But this frame has texture all over it, and I like it. It's really good texture. It's got places for your pointer finger and also for your thumb to help point. You know, before your finger's ever on the trigger, you're on the target just naturally. And the ergonomics of the frame are really good. It does have replaceable back straps, so you can kind of tune it to your hand. And you can get really high up on this gun, which was really nice. And we did notice that helped out with recoil quite a bit.
Yeah, and you know, on the Kimber KDS9C, it's a good looking gun. It's a good feeling gun. It's a comfortable feeling gun, but the texture is still a little lacking, in my opinion. You know, you've got your accessory rail up here, and the grips that we have on here are actually upgraded high texture grips from Kimber. That they had that deal going that if you bought it between a certain amount of months, you could send in your paperwork and they would give you 2 free mags and a set of grips of your choice. So we did get the high texture grips, and they do work better, but it still has no comparison to the grip texture on the polymer frame on the carbon fiber compact. And I will say, you know, like I said, this is a comfortable gun to shoot. It's a comfortable grip, very similar to like a 1911 grip angle. But there's something to say about this Kimber carbon fiber compact. It is probably one of the best grips on a polymer handgun that I've felt in a while. you get a very deep undercut on your actual that second finger. It just rides really high up into the gun. You have a very little tiny amount of material between you and the slide, so your hand gets super high up on the gun, which really helps with the recoil. And then this little cut right here for your support hand to go actually has texturing on it, so when you go to support, your hand doesn't move around near as much as it does on, you know, a lot of different guns out there. So everywhere that there's texture, like Joshua said, they actually thought it through, and it made to be a very nice, well shooting gun. And that it's really, you don't have to really grab onto this thing much at all, to be able to wrench down on it. So I really like the angle, everything about the grip that they did on the carbon fiber compact. It's just phenomenal.
Yep.
You do get a magwell on this gun, an extended magwell right here, and it's very easy to take on and off. The only downside to that, I wish they would have made the mag base plate just stick out a little bit more, because when you go to insert the mag into the gun, you kind of get, it does insert and it does lock, but you do kind of smack your hand on the corner of that magwell, and it kind of hurts a little bit if you're really, you know, putting it in with a little bit of force. So I wish they would have made the mag base plates just a little bit thicker, where it sticks out just a little bit past the mag well, and maybe that wouldn't happen. But it's not too big of a deal. It's just one of those things that we've noticed as we've been shooting it. All right, and coming down to, you know, one of the most important parts, the triggers. This is where we're going to see a huge difference in the guns. So the Kimber KDS9C has a pretty good trigger. It's a very light, crisp trigger break. Very short reset. Obviously, it's a 1911 style, so it's not throwing your finger back out there, but it is a short reset. So a very fast trigger to shoot. Not a lot of work in your trigger finger. It's very comfortable to shoot. And like I said, that really light, crisp break is just, you know, fun to shoot, and it's nice to shoot. You don't really have to think too much about your trigger pull. If you want to go over to the carbon fiber compact.
Yeah, so this trigger, it's what I would say is an okay trigger.
Yeah.
It is not, the trigger in this is not what makes this gun great. It's all the other features that you get, and it just has an okay trigger to go along with it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other guns this size that might actually have a better trigger. So,
oh, yeah.
It is a little bit heavy, but I think it's still appropriate, you know, considering it's a carry gun. And the reset is a little bit longer than I would like for it to be, but like I said, it's okay. It's not too bad. But it's very shootable.
Yeah.
It doesn't slow you down any. It's just that there are some guns out there that are a little bit better, but comparing these two, they're completely different, because we're going to a striker fire. This is a little bit heavier trigger that has a very forceful reset.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it where you can still shoot it fast even though it's a heavy trigger, is because it's actually pushing your finger forward. Whereas that one, it's really light, you pull it, but there's no pressure back.
Right.
So both of them you have to train with and learn and figure out what you like, but they're completely different triggers.
Yeah, I mean, the carbon fiber compact's trigger is very different than anything I've really shot before, other than like a Hellcat. The trigger is just, it's there's really no take up. You know, normally on striker fire triggers you have take up. This one really just starts with tension, and it breaks as you pull the it just breaks right when you start pulling. And then the reset, you feel like your finger's having to travel a lot, and it's traveling more than I would say most. But once it resets, it's immediately ready to pull again.
And it's very tactile. Like, you could hear it even when he was doing it right there. It's very tactile. You feel it. You can predict it. So
and I do like the trigger. And like you said, it all comes down to what you train with. If all you ever train with is a Glock, then this trigger's probably going to be a little different for you to shoot, and you may not like it. But we did find, as we shot this gun and tested it and really put it through the paces, the more you shoot with it, it really is a decent trigger if this is the only gun you shoot all the time. But the problem is, if you go shoot some of these, 1911 triggers, and then you go back to this, it is a little, you have to kind of take your time with it again before you start getting, shooting quick with it.
Yeah.
But again, I agree with Joshua. It's not a bad trigger. It's just different. But, it comes down to, you've got two guns right here. One, I know that we have a lot more on this gun, so we're going to compare this more at the base price.
Yeah.
Because this doesn't have a threaded barrel, doesn't have an optic on it. So we're going to go base price for base price. Which one would you recommend at this time?
So basically, if you were a Kimber fanboy, which carry gun would you go with from Kimber?
What's more practical to you?
Practical, I would say this one.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think even in our original review, if you guys haven't seen it, make sure to check it out. But
Yeah.
I think we even said about that one that it's kind of like your every once in a while carry, you know, kind of like your higher end gun,
Safe queen
but
kind of thing.
it's not the most practical gun out there. Whereas this one was kind of built for that.
Yeah.
So the ergonomics are a lot better for me. The trigger, if I were to actually need to use it in a stressful situation, I like it being a little bit heavier and being able to predict the trigger a little bit better, whereas that one is very light. And, you know, not to say that I wouldn't carry that, but just between the two and talking about practicality, I think this one's more practical. It's a lot cheaper. You know, it's at the starting price around $750. That one, I guess, starting price is around, what did you say?
You know, I really don't know. When we bought it, like
they're
I said,
starting to come down.
When we bought it, it was $1,700 gun, but it has come down some. So
yeah, but in this one, you know, all of them come with the rail, so that's nice too. You don't have to pay extra for that. But this gun shot great. I wouldn't be scared to carry this at all.
No.
I will note that they are both 15-round guns, so you get the same capacity. They're not the same magazines, but they are both 15-round guns.
And this gun is a good bit thinner than the KDS9C. So if that plays into how you carry, that's another thing too.
And the recoil on this one, and even without the compensator, we noticed the recoil on this one was a whole lot less. We just getting back on target, we could shoot this one a little bit faster and transition a little bit faster than that one. But what helps that one out is the trigger. But I think I would go with this. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, after we shot them back to back just to get a good. We've had a ton of trigger time on the KDS9C, and now we've had a ton of trigger time on the carbon fiber compact. And I actually found myself enjoying the carbon fiber compact more, which I didn't expect. I really like the look of the KDS9C. I like the grip is a little bit fatter. So as far as comfortability as far as shooting, just casual shooting, the thicker grip would be better. But this grip, the way they designed this, is almost perfect for my hand. I really liked the way that this grip came together for the carbon fiber compact. And in my opinion, I enjoy this gun and shoot this gun better than the KDS9C. So if I was going to, you know, personally recommend one or the other to you, I would put you in the direction of the carbon fiber compact, because I just really like this gun over the KDS9C. But that's just our opinion based off of what we've, you know, found by shooting the guns and putting them through the paces. So if you guys have any questions on either one, let us know down in the comments. If you want to help out the channel, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.